few weeks ago I found myself here, a VFR pilot flying under visual flight rules in the middle of clouds, one of the most dangerous and lethal places a pilot can be. So how did it happen? Let's review.
You need to calm down. I'm PIC right now. I'm taking my hood off. I've told you what I'm doing. You cannot challenge me like that.
Hi everybody, welcome to this edition of Flight Review. My name is Caleb.
I'm Andrew.
So today what we want to do is tell you a story of a flight that we had a couple weeks ago. So when this flight began, we were flying from Duluth, Minnesota to just south of Minneapolis. We were flying a Cessna 172R, one of the newer ones, and it was equipped with a G500, something that I think will come into play later in the story. We were flying down for a specific purpose. We were flying on a weekend and looking to pick up a Cessna 140. The plan was for us to fly together in the Cessna 172 and then get to the airport where the 140 was held, and then Andrew would fly the 140 and I would fly the 172 back. When we set out, we got a weather briefing. I did one on ForeFlight, I think we called a briefer as well, and it was forecast to be perfect weather in Duluth and then some low-level fog, maybe low stratus clouds in Minneapolis that were going to be lifting up as the sun rose and the radiation lifted it off.
Yeah, so as we started flying down towards the cities, and we got about halfway, just about 20 miles north of the metro area, we realized things weren't as forecasted.
Right.
There was an upper layer of clouds that hadn't been forecasted, and it was a lot thicker than even when we had first started, and that was preventing the lower layer of fog from dispersing. So we realized there, and we had a conversation about it in the cockpit as we were flying, that the low layer of fog, which went all the way to our destination, was going to last longer than anybody had forecasted.
So when we realized that there was an upper layer of clouds preventing our lower layer from dissipating, I kind of took over as a weatherman of sorts. I started looking at the weather reports ahead, using the AWOSs and ASOSs. I was using ADS-B data to get METAR reports and was checking the area, and really a lot of the area around and including the airport we wanted to get to were all showing IFR or low IFR. None of that had been forecast for the morning. The Minneapolis TAF, the one TAF closest to us, was showing steadily improving weather conditions. It still showed weather that would be fine by the time we got there. So we decided to press on. We were still probably 45 minutes away from our destination, and I knew that we had clear weather behind us. So at this point, me as a weatherman looking outside the plane was confident to move on with Andrew under the hood, and we knew that we could turn around if we needed to.
But unfortunately, as we got already into the metro area, we were off to the east, staying out of the Bravo. Things got a lot more complicated. Caleb got a lot more task saturated as we were focusing a lot more on navigation, staying out of the Bravo, staying under the shelves, and also avoiding clouds, which were there, although we didn't expect them to be there. We now knew they were going to be there, and it was just more of, are there still ways to get to our destination? At that point, we were still very confident there were ways to get around the clouds. They were more sparse off to the east, off to our left, and we were essentially trying to go around them, to try to cut around. We also had thoughts of going underneath the cloud layer. The cloud layer was anywhere from 800 to 1,500 feet AGL forecasted at the airports.
I kept checking our destination to see, are we going to even be able to make this place, or do we need to turn around at some point? So I was going up and down, something I wasn't very used to doing.
Yeah, so I remember we were flying here, and I remember distinctively Caleb saying, I think we're in the clouds, and then immediately do a 180. So at that point, I even remember he grabbed the yoke as well, and immediately we were doing a 180. My head comes up, instinctively I took the hood off, and I see that we're in, probably 80% IMC, which quickly became full IMC. I could see a bit of the ground off on my left for a couple seconds, and then all of a sudden we were in the clouds.
So after executing our 180-degree turn out of the clouds, we realized that the path behind us was no longer a safe option for getting out. We had a layer of clouds above us, maybe 1,000 to 1,500 feet above us, and then we kind of had a almost wall of clouds behind us. They had been steadily rising, I think is what happened from the ground, and had kind of sealed our way out. There was no way to get out of these clouds really without popping into the clouds in some way. So I looked at that and I saw, okay, we've got a problem here. And then I looked down at my ADS-B data to see, okay, are there VFR airports around us? And there were no VFR airports around us. It's no longer about getting to our final destination. It's about getting out of this situation.
Yeah.
most of the airports were ceilings 500-600 feet, which is below my personal minimums, especially in an airplane that's this foreign to me. So again, we weren't planning on doing instrument approaches. We weren't planning on flying on instruments at all. But luckily, we found a marginal VFR airport that was, I think the ceiling was 12 or 1100.
It was around 1200. Yeah.
This marginal VFR, which I think was the right choice. We had it was a 600-foot ceiling versus a 1200-foot ceiling. I saw that, I'm like, okay, we're going for the 1200-foot. So we directed towards that one. Then we immediately went on with, got on with approach and got pop-up IFR clearance. Told them that we were stuck above the clouds and wanted pop-up IFR and wanted to go straight to this airport.
Being in IMC for about 20 minutes, actually just over 20 minutes, and before we broke out on extended final. Yeah, so obviously we're really glad that we got on the ground safely. We both learned a lot from it. We debriefed it extensively on the ground, even in the coming days after it. And I think already it's influenced the ways that we're flying, but these are things specifically that we've really learned. The first thing that I learned really well was to know your airplane. I'd only flown this airplane once before, so it took a lot of my brain power just to figure out how to use the GPS system, which I hadn't used, how to understand this PFD, which I'd flown with only once before. So that was taking up so much of my brain power. It was hard for me to focus on other things like navigation and this critical decision making when we saw the forecast going different than it actually was. So you definitely know your airplane, know its limitations, know the equipment in it, so you can focus on making the decisions you need to do and reading what's around you rather than reading manuals inside the airplane in critical moments.
Right. Another thing that we learned, I think, from this was managing the get-there-itis attitude. When we went on this flight, this wasn't just a leisurely flight. We had a goal. We were going to pick up an airplane. The people at the airport we were flying to were expecting us, and we had a large desire to get this done today. It was going to be like a 3-4 hour ordeal, flying here, getting this airplane, getting it checked out, and bringing it back up to where we came from. And we'd taken a whole day to plan this out and do this, and to turn around and go back would feel like we had failed on our mission. And so we were determined to push through, and I think that kind of that mindset was what pushed me as the person looking out the window into increasingly deteriorating conditions. And I think that kind of segues into crew resource management, which was another big lesson we learned. When we're studying for ratings, especially private pilot, there's a big emphasis on SRM, single pilot resource management. How are you as the PIC going to manage all of the various variables that are kind of swarming around you while you're in the air? How are you going to stay ahead of the airplane? When you're flying with a safety pilot and a pilot under the hood, where the safety pilot is, acting PIC, and the pilot under the hood is, PIC, and you've got two PICs with different things going on, who's in charge of what? And that was something that we hadn't properly discussed beforehand, and something that as tension started to build and more factors started playing into the flight, we started to struggle with. Being in the right seat and in charge of making sure we were clear of clouds and clear of traffic, it was clearly my goal to make sure that we stayed out of those clouds. However, as we started getting into more difficult airspace, I increasingly had to step in and help with navigation, setting up waypoints, and checking weather inside the airplane, checking METARs and things in the area, because we were looking ahead to our destination. We were trying so hard to get there. And so that put me in a much more heads down environment, which then made it difficult to watch and avoid the clouds. I kind of learned here that it's good to have a good pre-flight brief and talk about who's going to be in charge of what. You're going to be in charge of navigation, and you're going to be in charge of this, and that kind of thing.
Well, hey guys, thank you for watching, for listening. We hope that you guys have been able to take something away from this video, just like we have. We're out flying, we fly quite a bit, we love flying, and we love to give back and share with the aviation community the things that we're learning, whether it's own mistakes or our own lessons or things that we see around us. So welcome to Flight Review. We're excited to do this in the future as well. Both of us have very different aviation backgrounds, which we're excited to share more about in the future. But we're both brothers and we love flying. We fly a lot together. So yeah, we hope to see you guys out there sometime, and blue skies.
Thanks for watching.